Girlfriend of 7 months. How do I regain attraction? Has been distant emotionally.
He has or she has?
He just put has been distant.
So if your girlfriend of 7 months has been distant, well, I mean, what that typically looks like, he can feel and he can tell that she's not as attracted as she used to be. And so he probably notices she's not as excited to see him. She's not as quick to return his phone calls or his messages. She tends to text shorter responses. And oftentimes guys notice that they're typing these long responses and they're getting these real short ones from her. It's you got to notice stuff like that. You got to notice the effort that somebody is putting in or not and match and mirror it. And most guys tend to pursue too much, but it's also possible that he did or said something and she's upset about it. And so if you're on your date the next time and your girl's being quiet, you're like, "Hey, you're kind of quiet. What's going on?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling?" And a normal woman will go blah, 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 and will tell him
Mm-hmm.
with not too much resistance. But a chick that's fucked up is gonna stonewall him, or I don't want to talk about it, or I just got a lot on my mind, and
Mm-hmm.
she'll try to, brush the guy off. Oftentimes, women will do that in hopes that you care enough to keep digging until they're like, "No, you got to tell me what's going on. We're getting ready to go to this nice restaurant, and you're stewing about something." And it's like, we
Yeah.
need to. I don't want to go in a restaurant with this vibe. We need to talk
Mm-hmm.
about it on the way over there. It's like you need to tell me what's going on.
Mm.
It's not loving to hold back. Fear and hurt imprison the heart.
Yeah.
So you got to speak from your heart and share what's going on, and you got to get her to do that. And a normal girl will do that,
Right.
and she'll tell you, what's going on, so you can work through whatever it happens to be. But if he's over pursued and just been kind of needy and obnoxious and called too much and tried to force her to spend more time around him than she really wanted to, like he's wanting to see her more times during the week than she wants to, but she feels guilty, so she goes anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And you want the girl to be there because she's excited to see you, not because it's like a mercy fuck or whatever, or she's taking pity on you because you whine so much that she'll want to go and hang out.
Yeah.
And so if you've just turned her off with over pursuing and acting needy, just match and mirror her effort. Be
Mm-hmm.
okay with not seeing her for several days or even maybe a week.
Yeah.
If you went out once last week and she really, treated you like a second class citizen, then go a week and a half or 2 weeks without seeing her. Make your next date for a week and a half in the future. And then you got no reason to call or text her for anything and just let her be present with the silence. And then as her feelings start to return and she starts to miss you, she'll start to call and text you more.
Yeah.
And, because if everything's normal, it's like you guys are just like cats. Women are like cats sometimes. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they just spend a lot of time with you. You get real familiar, you get a little bored, and you want to go do something else. You want to hang out with your girlfriends or whatever, clean your room, clean your house, see your mom, catch up on work or whatever.
Yeah.
And a man has to be secure in himself that he's okay with that and he doesn't freak out. In
Mm-hmm.
other words, he's not turning his girlfriend into his emotional support human.
Yeah. He said something about regaining attraction. What do you think about like the guys who date girls that aren't even in their type? Like let's say their type is blondes, but then they date a girl who's a brunette. Like is that like you're putting yourself up for like failure already by dating someone who's not even in your.
Well, she's hot. A hot girl's a hot girl. I mean,
Yeah.
I've always liked dark haired women.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of blonde girlfriends, though.
Yeah.
So it depends.
Yeah.
If she's hot, it shouldn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
If you say I only like girls that have blue eyes, and then you meet a girl who's got the most beautiful hazel eyes you've ever seen, you're not going to give a shit about the fact she doesn't have blue eyes. You just love the hazel eyes.
Right.
Or they have green eyes like I do. I think something like 2% of the population has green eyes.
Green eyes.
Most people have brown.
Yeah.
I think it's like 78% have brown eyes.
Right.
And so if you're like me and you got green eyes and then you meet a cute girl with green eyes, that's a cool thing to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice her, you're like, wow, you got beautiful green eyes. It's like, do you want to know a truth about people, a nice statistic about people that have green eyes? It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
what's that? There's only about 2% of us in the world that have green eyes.
Mm.
So that's a cool thing we have in common.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
tidbit to just talk about when you're on a date, something you have
Yeah.
in common, something that's interesting.
Right. I don't know. I asked that because I've come across some people who this girl that was dating a guy for about a year now, and he just recently broke up with her, and one of the reasons was that he loved her, cared about her, respected her, and everything. But he was just like, honestly, she was never really my type. I liked who she was, the person she was, like her character, but like, I'm actually more into like blondes and white girls, and the girl was like a Hispanic girl with dark hair. So it's just like, does it really matter? If you really loved her, you would have made it work. But
Whatever reason, he wasn't feeling it, so it's
right,
better to let him dip.
yeah,
Because it's tough when that happens. Because typically when that happens is whether it's a guy or a girl, they don't see it coming, and then all of a sudden, hey, you're not really my type, or I'm out,
right,
and you have to let that person go because that's part of the vetting process. You want to make sure that somebody's with you because they really want to be with you,
yeah,
not because they settled. And there's a lot of people, a lot of women especially, they settle for
yeah,
a guy and marry guys that they're not even in love with just because all their friends are getting married. Maybe they gave up on the fairy tale or the Disney fantasy, whatever happens to be. It's like one of the examples I wrote about in my book. There was this woman that was dating a doctor who was on
yeah,
this cruise that I was on, and she was beautiful. And I remember her telling me, she's like, I didn't fall in love with my husband for the first 7 years we were together. I was like, what? I was like, tell me about that. And so she says, well, I was walking down the street, and it was a place in Orlando, a well-known street, Brick Street, and lots of shops and stuff. And he very confidently strode over to her and told her how beautiful he thought she was, and he asked her out. And she gave him her number, but she was kind of difficult to get out on a date, and she's like, but he was just kind of persistent. And she just because she was in I think late 20s, early 30s, and she was thinking about settling down. This guy's a successful doctor. He's a good looking dude, but he was just kind of a bitch. He was like a beta male. When he got around pretty girls, he had no game. He was like a very smart dork, basically.
yeah,
And so he was only focused on his interest and his attraction in her. He had zero clue that he was marrying and married and was with a woman for many, many years that wasn't even in love with him for 7 years that they were together. So she's having sex with this guy and having kids with him and
yeah,
not even in love. And it was in about year 7 that she said she finally fell in love. And I would say more than likely, what's interesting is year 7, 7 year itch. So probably it went for the first 7 years that he's kind of got her on a pedestal. And then after about 7 years together, he wasn't that into it anymore. He wasn't as into it as he used to be. And she could
right,
feel it and she could sense that. And so as he started to pull away and make less of an effort, she started to make up for that. And then that stimulated her interest and her
right.
feelings. And she fell in love with him. And what was
Interesting.
funny was that was like, what was that, 99, 2000, I think that was. And I remember probably about 9 years later, I was on, I had gone on what was a dating app? It was like, I think it was Match.com. And I fucking saw her on there.
Oh,
And so they didn't ultimately stay together.
yeah,
But it was interesting because I always asked those kinds of questions. At the time, I was still really learning and connecting dots and stuff
yeah,
like that. And it was fascinating to me to hear this guy, because this dude was on TV. He's very wealthy, very successful. Like, granted, he was a dork, but he was handsome. He had everything going for him. He had money, he had handsome, good looks, and he married a woman that was just going along with it, basically. And
wow,
I suspect it wasn't until he kind of got to the point where he wasn't as into her anymore that she really started to care.
yeah.
But ultimately,
A little
it
too
didn't work
late.
out.
Yeah, too late. It was probably like it got to the point where he was like, oh no, this girl's really into me now. I kind of have to cut it off.
I think he just didn't care.
Yeah.
Maybe he met somebody else.
Yeah, maybe that. Damn. That's sad.
It happens. And that dude, I don't think he ever found out.